Hey everybody, this is Jeff here with the Embroidery Nerd, and today we have a special guest. We have Renee Rosales with is it Happy Embroidery Machines, or should I say TexMac or TexMac Direct?
Yeah, TexMac or TexMac Direct, and of course we're the U.S. distributor for Happy Embroidery Machines.
Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the pitfalls of people who are coming into the embroidery business and how they can avoid those. But first, let's go ahead and we'll learn a little bit more about Renee. So Renee, what got you started into embroidery?
Well, I didn't think it was something I'd ever expect. I had zero sewing background when I got into it in 1997, but I did have a graphics background, and I was looking for jobs at that point, March of 1997. And just on a fluke, literally a temp agency, they said somebody could speak a little Spanish, which, you know, there's quite a bit of that in the industry. Somebody who knew graphics and had some teaching experience. And so I had all three. And I jumped in and I joined an embroidery digitizing software company. We wrote digitizing software back then. So I was there to teach that. And so I'd been doing that steadily, and I actually haven't stopped that since 97. But as I did that for a few years, I got to know some of the major manufacturers. We had partnered with TexMac and Happy Embroidery Machines, and at some point TexMac picked me up, and that's how I got into the machine side, because with my teaching experience, they also started having me teach the machines. So I've been doing that continuously, as well as, of course, other duties. But relative to your discussion here and what we're all talking about, that's kind of how I kind of jumped in. And I thought I'd be in for a few years, but here I am, pretty much a lifer, just loving what we're doing.
Okay. So how long have you been operating machines then?
Operating machines, well, when I joined TexMac in the summer of 2001, I started with software classes, but by mid-2002, obviously I was teaching software and the machines were in there, and I was curious, and I gradually cross-trained on that. So since 2002, 2003, so probably about 17 years, just being an outsider, learning it, and oddly enough, knowing the digitizing and the graphics background first. I was a graphic artist, and understanding the software side first and troubleshooting, and then working closely with our techs over 17 years are all factory trained, who would teach me insights into that. And for a while, we are a Japanese company, TexMac, is that the engineers from Japan who would design the machines and build them would sit down, and they would let me sit in on the technical discussions about it, on changes to the machines. And also, of course, with the customers, I did a lot of customer support, trying to understand what people were doing wrong in the digitizing. But to do that, I started to get to know the entire process for running an embroidery job, and what the role of the digitizing and the software is compared to the role of the machine and the operator and the equipment and accessories backing and all that, and how all that played together. And of course, I've learned a lot doing that nonstop for, again, almost 2 decades.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to drop into some of the comments here right now. We have Carol Chapman saying hello. We have Van here. Greetings, my excellent friends.
Hey, Van.
Linda Stapleton says hello. Linda. We have Prem here saying hi. Joe saying, hey, Renee. I think you might know Joe.
Yes, I know Joe very well. Yes.
We have Letty saying greetings. Prem, I want to be the great one too. I really have a huge passion on embroidery. So I think that's going to bring me the little bit that you brought there at the end about the role of the digitizing and the role of the machine. That kind of brings me into my first question and kind of a statement, because I know what I think about this already. But what do you recommend first for new people coming in? Should they try to learn digitizing and embroidery at the same time, or should they learn one and then the other?
Well, I think you and I are in lockstep on that, but I'm going to throw a little background within a couple of sentences here. Is that when I started in 97, digitizing was a lot more expensive, and it was a lot harder to come by. There weren't nearly as many digitizers out there, and it was hard to find a good digitizer. And back then you had to pay $10 a thousand. So a little left chest design like this 3,500 stitch design was going to be $35, and you couldn't get it for any less. And the turnaround was 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and you had to find a good digitizer, and they would mail you a floppy disk. So with all that turnaround and with all that cost, when I would teach digitizing software classes, everybody who bought a machine was in there, whether they were good at digitizing, whether they liked computers or not, which is another thing. And they paid attention, and it was 3 days long. And there was a lot to learn. There still is a lot to learn. And of course, some people got it right away, and there were different learning curves. But now that digitizers are in more abundance, great digitizers that are out there, and it's much less expensive, and the turnaround is so fast. It's not so important that you have to do it yourself. And then finally, I'll get back to what I really want to say about this is that if you really do like digitizing, and I don't mean to sound discouraging about the way the climate's changed as to whether you want to make that decision or not and bring that in-house. If you still like that, because I think it's really neat to see the embroidery machine putting out something that you created, that wing shape that you did, or that you're creating something original. That's a wonderful thing. But I'll tell you something, the thing that taught me more about digitizing than actually working for the company itself was actually watching the embroidery machine sew out designs and look at what I had created and see how different it looks, or how other people digitize. I look at a piece of artwork and then how the digitizer changes that. And watching what they do, you start to get a sixth sense of how stitches render an image or artwork or a logo. And if you develop that by just focusing on the machine and running it and watching designs run, and whereas in your head you may have pictured how it looked, how you want it to look, and then actually seeing it turn out differently from a digitizer, that alone will actually make you a much better digitizer by focusing on the machine first.
Yep. And I think, like, personally, I think that you should learn the machine first, in my honest opinion, and watch good digitized, well-running designs go. Because when you have a problem, now you're trying to decide, is it with the machine or is it with the digitizing? Because it could be either. It's not necessarily one or the other. And so if you have a good source design, you have a good digitizer, that alone allows you to focus on the problem that you're having with the machine. And in my opinion, you should slowly transition away from a digitizer to doing your own stuff. You start with the simpler things, you get an idea, you get a feel, and you move from somebody digitizing all your designs to somebody to digitizing your own stuff. And you might find along the way that $25 for a left chest logo is not worth your time to spend 2 or 3 hours digitizing it versus sending it to somebody that is very fluent in their software and can get it done quicker and turn it around faster.
Right. And the reality is that there are people that are, I'm more as patriotic as the next person, and I love to keep work in the US, but there are a lot of digitizers out there that are hungry in many senses of the word, that are really focused on being just super click efficient, super fast. They know all the shortcuts, do it all the time, and are just so utterly motivated because maybe that's going to be their dream to do. And their service is really fast. And you can't beat the time efficiency, especially if you're emailing somebody somewhere else, where here in the US, if you are spending, if it costs you an hour of your time, then you've saved only $25 during that hour. Is your time worth $25, or is it worth more? Whereas you can send that out to somebody where $25 for an hour's worth of work is great money. So yep. Those economics really come into play, and it all works in your favor, because that means you have a lot of people who are inexpensive who can do it for you. And I'll make a personal statement, as if that I was going to to do this for myself, and I can digitize in my sleep, I'll tell you the first thing is that I'm going to rely partially on some of the digitizers that I know that can, like you said, Jeff, do this a lot faster. And there may be times when they're like exactly what you said, logos that are so complex it might take me 2 or 3 hours that might take somebody else an hour, hour and a half, and what I would pay for it doesn't justify my time if I'd paid myself to do the same thing.
Yep. And looking at this, when I first started, so I don't know if you know this or not, but when I first started, my resolve is I'm not going to digitize, or I'm not going to send out any files at all. I'm going to do it all in-house. I'm going to do it. But as I've gotten further along in my little journey that I've been going through here, I've found that the most important thing is to keep your machine running. And if you're starting out and you're attempting to try and run a business and you want to make it past your first year, second year, third year, the most important thing is that your machine is running constantly. And what I found is people that want to learn digitizing and they come in and they want to learn it at the same time as running their machine, they're either running their machine or they're digitizing. They're not doing both at the same time because they have to test those designs. So what ends up happening is it might cost them an hour worth of their time, but it's also costing them an hour's worth of productivity on the machine. And if you can kick out, let's go with a conservative 5 hats an hour at roughly $10 a hat, you just lost $50
right
of machine runtime, as well as the $25 that it took you to digitize it. And you're going to find that you're running between doing both, and you're going to run yourself ragged really, really quick.
Right. And you're not focused on both. I've tried it. Again, I can digitize in my sleep, but if I'm running a job, because my wife does digitize and she does embroidery, and if I'm running a job for her, then I'm watching that job and making sure that it's perfect before it starts going into serial production. And there are other things, that's an entire business into its own without the digitizing. And there are two different modes that you're in. So totally agree.
Yep. So I'm going to jump into the comments here. We have Frank. I missed it. We have Frank here saying good morning. Frank, the live was today, not yesterday. We have Frank saying digitizing is not easy. We have a question here from Letty. Have you seen a change as more people enter on more of the hobby level background versus the commercial level?
A change regarding, okay, I see that. Well, I see both, and I'm more on the commercial side just because the line of machines that I work with are primarily commercially oriented, but we've dabbled into the hobby and craft side where people either doing it as a hobby and not, maybe they're not as commercially driven, but if there's any difference between the two styles, I would just say that when you're not under pressure to do a 10 business day turnaround time, and if it's something that's really valuable, then it can be worth it to spend a little extra time and get a little bit more detail into it. So as much as I'm proud of the commercial side and how it makes money, I'm really impressed with the hobby side where people who are artists put a little bit more time and maybe add a little bit more detail and up that stitch count to make it a little bit more detailed. But also the other difference too is that maybe some levels of perfection aren't nearly as required. And also the other side of that is when you're running as a hobby, you're doing it for fun. You don't have that pressure, and that's okay too. So if that partially answers the question.
So the biggest thing that I see versus when you have somebody that enters the business for commercial reasons or versus somebody you have entering the business for hobby or even trying to push from hobby to commercial is the pricing structure. People that are in the hobby world, there is an echo chamber of $1 a thousand stitches that a lot of people can't get out of. And really when you go into the hobby level, those are people that are just trying to pay for their supplies. They're not really worried about their time. Profit is kind of I'm going to do this and I'm going to make a little side money. But when you come down to a commercial business and when people enter this for commercial reasons, they're not going to be able to support a business at $1 per thousand stitches. They won't. And so it's kind of interesting as you see when people come in from the hobby and they try to transition to the industrial or the commercial side, I guess. The biggest thing that I see in that transition that people struggle with the most is pricing. And you actually see people ask pricing questions. Hey, I got a quote here, or I have somebody coming to me, they want 100 hats and it's a 3,000 stitch logo. How much should I charge? And the people that are on the hobby level are going to instantly comment on that post, $1 per 1,000 stitches. And the people on the commercial level are going to start saying, well, let's look at this. How many heads do you have? How long does it take for that design to run? And how fast can you turn those around? Because ultimately it comes down to me personally, and I'll preach this all day, every day. You have to have an hourly limit on what you're charging. If you want to make it, you have to have an hourly limit. And you determine that by knowing what your costs are on everything. And then you can determine your break-even point. And then you add on top of that how much profit you want to turn. And that gives you a margin that you can competitively price and make sure that you're going to cover all of your costs. Because at the end of the day, if you don't cover those costs, you're going to go under. And so knowing what that hourly rate is to cover your costs for the month is what's going to move you from hobby level to business level to be able to support and sustain a business. I preach that pretty hard.
No, it's good. That's definitely great points, because at the hobby level, you're not really concerned about profit return on investment. But if you once you get into the business, and there's the lines blur, because with the hobbyist who's operating out of their home, which is legit, you'd be surprised how easy it is to get an operating certificate. Of course, depending on how your dwelling is zoned. But if it allows, it's very, very easy to get an operating certificate to run a business out of your home. And the machines are quiet enough that it's not a nuisance or anything. And so you can run, and there suddenly you have an advantage that some types of commercial embroiderers don't have, which is you don't have overhead. You don't have rent. You don't have utilities. Or in some of the scarier but higher profile type setups, like if you see a kiosk in the mall, those kiosks are charging anywhere from $25 to $40 a square foot for you just to be there every month. And so the hobbyists are tempted to say, hey, I can make a little bit of money because I don't have those cost factors in. And that helps you get in there. And some people even stay at that level. I know we have lots of customers at TexMac who are operating out of their home, and FedEx comes in every day, drops off stuff from Sanmar and other distributors, and picks up boxes going out to their customers. And it's a very comfortable way of doing business. That's
me. I operate in my home. This is my office that's 11 feet by 11 feet that everything fits in. But I operate out of my home. I'm going to grab a couple more comments here. We have Brenda saying hello.
Hi, Brenda.
Cheryl Lynn Williams saying hello, or good evening, I should say.
Sure.
Carrie Smith Lodgy, good evening, all. Again, Cheryl, good point. I didn't think of that. I got behind on comments, Renee. I'll be honest with you.
Okay, that's all right. You set the pace, and I'll try to look at these comments here. I want to make sure that everybody gets any feedback that they're asking from this.
Yep. So we have Catherine here saying, yes, I'd rather find a good digitizer than spend machine runtime.
I agree.
Marilyn saying, good to hear all this. I felt guilty for not learning to digitize. I want to say it's something like 80% of embroiderers don't even know how to digitize. They don't even attempt it. They outsource it. So you don't have to feel guilty about not learning it. And you don't have to. We have Macon here. I'm not even going to pronounce that because I don't speak it. But you guys can read it on the screen. We have Carrie saying, that is my struggle now. Took over a business last year with a brick and mortar, and all my customers are stuck on I used to pay the old owners $3 for my logo. I have had so many customers leave with no sale because they want $5 and dime price. And, you know, it's really, really tough. Really tough. When you run into that, you have to hope that your quality is good enough that when they go find somebody that's on the bargain end of things, they're not going to be happy with the stitch out and the quality that they're getting, and they're going to come back to you. And people will pay more for quality. You just have to work to be able to give them that quality that's higher than somebody else's. And I think that goes into knowing your machine as well.
Well, and also I'd add on to that is that it's hard holding on to your price and holding the line. I always tell people, research your market. You're not cheating your competitors by going incognito and shopping your competitors and looking at their price, and look at the general pricing structure in your area or your perceived market of competition, because they've spent a lot of time arriving at those prices to set those as a floor below which it becomes very difficult to operate profitably. So everybody's tempted to drop their price as a new embroiderer, and I understand that. But going back to what you said, Jeff, is that if you focus on making sure that you can put out a good quality product, even though you are going to have, and you're always going to have customers that are going to lowball you, or I can always do it cheaper. We've all seen those internet memes, Facebook memes about that, on what you're going to expect to get. But if you, as you continue to market yourself and hustle, eventually the volume of customers that come through, you're going to develop a reputation of having good, reliable customer service, good quality embroidery, and it's not going to mean anything. It'll mean less and less those customers that you drop because you're holding on to price, because there are customers out there that understand the quality of embroidery. And everywhere I look, there are some pockets where maybe the market's saturated, but for the most part, a lot of embroiderers are backed up. They're weeks behind, especially in this time of year when we have Christmas and holiday volume. So hold out, because there is demand for it, and people will pay the price that it takes to keep you profitable and operating successfully for your business.
Yep, and I'm gonna key in on that, and then I'm gonna catch Cheryl Lynn Williams' statement that I've had here, and I'm clicking on. There we go. Too many buttons. So when you're competitively pricing, and this is really, really important, and I hope that everybody listens to this. As long as you know your costs and you're making sure that your costs are covered, right? When you come down, you have to bill them for the full amount and then show a discount, because you need to show them the value that they're getting as well as the price they're getting it for. And it makes it easier to charge them more the next time, because they'll go, well, what did you charge me last time? They'll go dig out their receipt and they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, well, that is their hourly rate, or that is how much it costs. But you have to make sure that they know the value that they're getting from you. And then you can move your price down, but you have to show that discount. I bill for everything, even when it's a gift. I make an invoice and I discount it 100%, because I want people to know the value that they're getting from me. And it's really important that they know that, because that sets you up to increase your prices later if you have to. That's my opinion.
And that's a great tool. I think that's awesome that they have something on paper they can remember. And another thing I would add also that's out there universally is also the universal, everybody has a sense of what clothes are worth, because we shop on Amazon, or we go to Walmart, or we go to Nordstrom's or wherever, and they get an idea of what a golf shirt costs. And once you get your federal tax ID, and you hook into these wholesale distributors, the standard purchase price, your cost, is typically somewhere around 50% of retail. So you have a little bit of room to mark up. But let's say that if you're buying let's say an Izod dry fit golf shirt, kind of like what I'm wearing, and the retail price is like $45. But your price is going to be somewhere more like 25, 30 or something like that. One thing that you got to be aware of is customers are clever these days. If they are asking for a certain type of garment for you that you can provide, they're savvy enough to look at tags and Google it and actually look at what the MSRP is. And if you have this weapon, which is the wholesale discounted purchase price, so that you can get that garment. You have a little bit of room for markup that you can move a little bit depending on your quantity that you purchase, and then you add your embroidery fee on that and your setup fee. Then that gives you enough room to build your profit in there. But also it gives a baseline. It gives the customer a baseline of what the value is, because they know what these items, these wearables are, their value is. And one thing you can do is, at least if you charge 100% markup, then they know that if they look at it, they're buying that garment roughly at retail plus a little bit more for personalization. So they understand, oh, okay, I'm paying what I would retail plus a little bit more. Or you can work that a little bit if you have really, really good margin, come down a little bit, but at least you got that base. And circling back to Jeff's point, is that build a sense of value in your customers through your paperwork. Like Jeff said, that's an excellent tool. And also just stay in touch with the reality of the pricing and look at your distributor pricing versus the retail price, because the customer is smart enough to see that. And when they look and they back check what you're charging, that they really, really see that they are getting something worth it with a quality embroidered logo or design on it.
Yep. And I'm going to come with an example, because this actually, my insurance company sent me an email on this the other day. We had to have a new roof put on our house, and the invoice that I got from the roofing company said roof, $15,000. That was it. There was nothing else. It just said roof, $15,000, right? And so if you sell a shirt, let's say you sell, you get a $20 shirt, you mark it up to $40, then you add the $5 worth of embroidery or $10 worth of embroidery on there, right? If you send that to your customer and you just say shirt, $60, right? They're gonna go and they're gonna hit the MSRP on that and go, well, the MSRP is not $60, right? But if you come back and you say shirt, $40, customization, left chest, customer logo, $20, right? Now they're separating the value in their mind. So when they go and look at the MSRP of the shirt, they're going to say, well, it's MSRP of the shirt. They're going to discount that. And then they're seeing the value that you put on top of it separately in a separate line item.
Right. That's perfect. That's a great way to bring both points together. That's awesome. Totally agree.
So I have to catch up. I've been getting drowned in comments. Yeah, so we're going to go right here. Cheryl Lynn, absolutely. I've had to learn that from hobby to commercial. Good points on pricing, but depending on the region, wholesale competition in my area runs about 50 to 75 cents a thousand. So here's another Jeff's tip, I guess. In my town, we have a fairly large embroiderer. I want to say they have around 20, 25 heads. I have one. Okay. I do not even attempt to match their pricing. What I try to do is I try to go after the things that they're not willing to do. So that way I'm not directly competing with them, because they don't really want to touch like 5 shirts, 10 shirts. They're looking at bigger orders, and that's what they want. So I'm going out and I'm only targeting the 5 shirts, 10 shirts to get my business, because now I'm not directly competing with them and I don't have to adhere to their pricing structure. I can adhere to my pricing structure because they don't do what I do and I don't do what they do, if that makes sense. And if somebody grows with their company, and this has happened to me as well, as one of my customers grows and they need more shirts, even when they start getting into that 20, 25, 50 shirt order size, they're coming back to me because they used me before. So you have to kind of look at where you want to be competitive with other companies.
And building on that point, and I'll be very quick here because I know we want to catch up on comments, but your value, the best things that I've seen in 20 years for the small embroiderer that's starting out, that maybe has big ambitions and is fighting that monster and saying, well, I can't compete with this 5B's embroidery shop that's been in business for 40 years and has 500 embroidery heads, but don't sell yourself short. There's a huge value in good customer service. Follow those old business maxims, like under promise, over deliver, deliver on time. If you have any problems, communicate with your customer. They're forgiving if you have a supplier issue, or even if you mess up their shirt. Maintain that relationship with them and keep them keep them informed, and eventually, and learn as you become a more proficient embroiderer how to deliver good quality product. And believe me, exactly what Jeff said is that even as your customer size grows, your reputation and your customers that have been with you for a while, as they order more, they are less likely to go to the big embroiderers. And there's pitfalls with big embroiderers. Big embroiderers have something called a rejection ratio, where they'll deliver a huge bulk, a truckload of embroidery to a retail shop and business to business kind of situation, and the quantity is so large that they expect that the end user that's buying them is going to reject 10% of them and screw up. Whereas you, as a small embroiderer that has more control of your quality, has a more personal relationship with your customer, is going to give you a lot of value to them, because they feel like that you're going to deliver them a better, more consistent product. You can't don't sell yourself short on the value of that good customer relationship.
Okay, I'm catching back up on comments.
Right. Yeah.
We got Van here saying, I just added embroidery to my business. I also offer screen printing and other decorating services. So I personally think it's great to be able to offer multiple services, just like you are. It also allows you to do some really creative things that if you're just doing embroidery, you can't necessarily do, because now you have that ability to mix the different media decoration types, and you can get some really cool effects. One of the things I see a lot and more increasingly is sublimation over the top of embroidery. And so people who don't do sublimation or don't do vinyl, they don't really have that ability to mix those two types and get that part done. That was my quick answer. But we'll go ahead and fire down some here. We've got Denise here saying hello.
Hey, Denise.
Carrie saying, you're right, Jeff, that has been happening a lot lately. And I think that is true, that people will come back. If you just stick to your pricing and make sure that you're communicating your value. We have Lindy here saying, I'd rather digitize than run the machine. I'm not going to lie, I'd kind of rather digitize than run the machine too, but running the machine kind of pays the bills. So it's important, at least for me, that I run the machine. So we have Prem here saying, customers call me every single day, but I have to reject the orders in regards. Not enough time, but I do know this business section is the diamond. So, as you guys get more and more work, and this is something I've been working on too, and I can work on it. It's just something I need to work on, is at some point, you're going to have to start telling people no. Because if you tell everybody yes all the time, your quality is going to suffer, and you're going to get tired, and you're going to burn out. And you don't want to burn out, because then it just becomes a chore to go to work every day. I'd rather enjoy it. So I don't know about you, Renee.
No, I agree. And to add to that, and I'll be very quick here, is that if you're the salesperson or you have somebody else hustling for you, train them on what you can expect out of your media, because customers are going to ask for strange things, and maybe push you and ask for a job that's really pushing the limits of what embroidery or whatever it is that you can do. And the better you know your media, the easier you can tell if you're getting into that extreme zone where maybe you want to tell them to find another embroiderer or find somebody else to do it, because like Jeff said, you don't want to be pushed into a spot where you don't like what you're doing, because customers are pulling you all over the place, other than what you specialize in and what the type of embroidery that you get into that you're really, really good at and good at delivering.
Yep. And yeah, I'm scrolling through comments. There's so many comments, Renee. I fell behind. So Linda here saying about how much an hour is the norm. So this is like I said earlier, it really, really, really depends on your cost, what you can charge. I personally charge $60 an hour of machine runtime. And when I start an order, that's when runtime starts. So me swapping out hoops, hooping garments, all of that, $60 an hour. When the machine is not, when I take a shirt off of the machine, I'm sitting down and I'm trimming the stabilizer on the back. I'm cleaning up the embroidery to get it ready. But that is what I have found that works. It's $60 an hour. And that is mine. And I will say that one more time. That is mine. So that is what I charge, taking into account of what my costs are in order to pay myself, pay for my machines, and pay for the electricity I'm using, and to stay open. Because ultimately that's the goal, is you want to stay open and in business. And the customer coming to you and trying to talk down your price, you know, you can just say, if I do that, I'm going to have to close business. And they're not going to want you to close business, because then they can't come back to you later and have you do another job. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on how much per hour?
Well, I went off screen real quick because I brought up my calculator, and that if you're following the dollar per thousand maximum, and then that works out to about 1,000 stitches per minute. And obviously there's more involved in that. The structure of pricing, you're not only charging the dollar per thousand, but you're charging your markup, and you're charging also for a setup fee that either can be amortized over 10 pieces, or if it's only just one shirt, then yes, hit them with a full setup fee, including the digitizing. So I think that's fair, but I really think it comes down to what you first said, which is I actually used to moonlight as a photographer, which helped me with digitizing and graphics. And when I attend small business seminars for photography, basically it came down to what you said, which is look at your fixed costs, look at your variable costs, whether it's lenses, batteries, thread, stabilizer, rent, anything like that. Add that up and just gross it out over a year. Then divide it by the number of days you're open. Then let's say you're open 20 days, operating 20 days a month. So that's 240 days a month. So take that, your yearly cost divided by 240, and now you've got to figure a near-term figure of how much you need to make per day, and then divided that by 8. And that's how much it's costing you per hour to be open. And if you keep that target in the back of your head, then when people come in and lowball you and say, hey, I can get it cheaper down the street, say, here's the door, please, let me give you my best competitors. You know how much you need to be charging to stay open. And you're not making a figure up just to cover costs, but your embroidery is valuable. Good embroidery, good reliable embroidery can, and the profit from that can more than cover that cost.
Yep. All right. So good point about value. I'm so far behind, I'm not even sure which great point was great point, but we'll go on. We have Matt here saying, everyone know all I do is patches. When I started looking at pricing tables from websites selling patches under $3 a piece, I've had people pick me over them, and I'm charging $8 to $10 a patch just because they know that I care, instead of putting their credit card on another website. So I think a lot of that too goes down to what you talked about spoilage rates. When you start ordering from larger factories, they're going to kick out, you order 100, they're going to kick out 110, and they're going to expect at least 10 to 15 to 20 of them to be bad, and you're going to have to throw them away. And when you're doing it and you take care and you make sure every single one of those coming off the line looks perfect, they're going to notice that. They're going to say, you know what, when they delivered me 10 shirts, there wasn't a single one that had to go back. And they'll remember that versus a competitor that, man, the last time I ordered from them, I got 10 shirts. I had to take 3 of them back, and then they had to redo them, and then I had to get them again. And, there are 2 things that will help you maintain customers, maintain business. Excellent communication. You would be amazed at how many people in my area, general contractors, that when I call them, they do not call back and they don't answer their phones. So the first general contractor that I found that returned my phone call and communicated with me, that was the guy that got my business. He might not have been the best guy, but he was the guy that talked to me. And that's very, very important. When you're dealing with your customers, you need to just make sure that you're kind of keeping that communication flow open. If they have a question, they shoot you an email, shoot them an email back by the end of the day. It's the communication that's going to help you win business. The second thing that's going to help you keep business is the quality that you're giving them back And the third key to that is that you're making sure that they know your value and you know your value. I'm not saying that you have to charge that. I'm just saying that you have to make sure that when you do put it on an invoice, you mark the value and then you give them the discount. So those are kind of the keys that I see to being successful in business. It's turned into a lot more of business than it did general embroidery.
Right. If I could add just something really quick is that don't worry about, like you said, you had a bad, maybe not necessarily the greatest contractor, but they communicated back. Don't be afraid. If you have, one of the things I would advise for new embroiderers is that whether you buy used, and of course we'd prefer you buy new, and as coming from who I work for, but either way, whether you buy new or used, get a support system. And it's the technicians that work on your machine, the people that you learn from, like myself or Jeff, that can help you along with your quality, so that if you aren't great, because we all go through that point where we're not confident in our work, but there's enough media out there, there's enough experts out there that you can lean on. And I've seen this industry. I've seen a lot of people that I thought they're never going to make it because they're not great, and all they did was work hard, follow the lessons, try again, and your quality will be there. And then you can and basically communicate with your customer. Your quality will be there. You have enough resources to become that good quality, reliable embroiderer, and just stick to it.
So I'm going to come back because there's something I wanted to talk about way before this whole thing started that we never even really broached. And what you just said really kind of segues into it is when you buy a machine, you need a support system. So I know I've had 2 machines. Both of them have come with free training and training that you can take more than once. When you buy a new machine, utilize whatever training they're giving. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro or you're a beginner. You would be amazed at how many questions I've heard people ask in a class that I thought, I've never thought of that. And then I know the answer, and randomly it helps me out sometime later. So if you're, trying to learn your machine, you're struggling with quality. I mean, I've been working on a sash frame that should have been done 3 hours ago, but I've been having thread problems. Bad spool of thread.
Oh.
How many times have you pulled a spool of thread out and it been bad? Believe it or not, this is my first one. But I knew from classes that I've taken that it's a bad spool of thread. Damaged bobbins. Believe it or not, your bobbins can be damaged out of the box. When you get a box of bobbins, they can be bad. But you need to know what you're looking at on your machine to be able to tell if that bobbin's bad. And you're going to learn that 2 ways. There's the really, really hard way that's not very much fun. Or you can go to a class and you can ask a question, or you'll hear somebody else ask the question. Hey, I've been struggling with this. What do you think it could be? And then when they start going down the list of things, and it's like, you can have a bad bobbin out of the box? That's what this is right here. This is a bad bobbin out of the box. Every time I put this bobbin in, the bobbin thread breaks. Every time. 15 stitches. This thing breaks. Bad bobbin thread. This bobbin case is a bad bobbin case. It was dropped on the floor. It's now bad. How do I know? Because I attended a class and I learned that dropping this on the floor can make it bad. And after I dropped this on the floor, after somebody else dropped this on the floor, after I dropped this on the floor and I put it back in my machine and I started experiencing issues, I was like, you know what? Bad bobbin case. It lives on my desk now. It's got a little Sharpie mark on it so that I know which one it is, but I keep it as a reminder that I'm not supposed to drop these on the floor. So when you do get a machine And I even know manufacturers, and I believe TexMac is one of them. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But when you buy a used machine, they'll continue to give you support. It might be in a limited fashion, and some companies will even, they have like a support package that you can buy.
Right, we do. Yes.
It's worth it. In my opinion, it's worth it. You know, I'm not even sure how much it runs, but I'd pay it. If I bought a used machine, I'd pay it. Because now I have a support system that's in line, ready to go. That when I have a problem, I have a phone number that I can call, or I can email a tech, and I can find out the answer. And I'm not, you know, one of the things that I see on the internet, and it drives me up the wall, is there's a lot of bad advice out there. There are a lot of people that don't know that will answer a question. And if you're new and you don't know either, you don't know if that's bad advice or not. But when you have somebody that's been working at a company for like 20 years that knows the machines inside and out, and you can ask them, you know your advice that you're getting back is good.
Well, we're incentivized to give good advice, because if we give bad advice just for the sake of just being a loudspeaker for the company, then it comes back onto us twofold, because then they call again, and it hurts your reputation too. So we're, you know, at least I would assume that other brands are like this, but within the scope of TexMac, the distributor of Happy Embroidery Machines, it bodes well on us that customers are successful with their machines. So we definitely learn our lessons. If we give bad advice, it really hurts not just us, and we have to work harder, but it hurts our reputation, which hurts everything. So we're extremely driven to give good, practical, right to the point advice, so that you guys can be really, really confident about what you're doing with your machine, whether it's a Happy Embroidery machine or other brands like Barrett and Tajima, ZSK, or whatever the other brands are that you all have.
Yep. And I mean, ultimately, any company out there, any embroidery company out there, I have not met one company, not one, that wants you to fail. Everybody out there wants you to succeed. You know, the machine manufacturers, the stabilizer manufacturers, the thread manufacturers, all of them have educational content on their websites and on their YouTube channels. They don't do that because they want people to not do well in embroidery. They do that because when you succeed, they succeed.
Right. And you start buying more stuff from us.
Well, I mean, even then, right? Like if I stopped bugging Renee every week on Wednesdays,
which you're welcome to.
I'm welcome to, right? But he might be doing that. You know, as long as I'm doing well in business, that means they did a good job teaching me how to do well in business, or teaching me to run the machine. I might not have time every week to go to it, but I make time if I can, because guess what I do? All week, I'm like, that's weird. I write down a note. Oh, that's kind of odd. I write down another note. And then once a week, I go to training and I'm like, I have a question or three. I have a list, because if I know that I'm going to talk to somebody once a week, then I'm not going to call support every 5 minutes. Hey guys, I have a question. My machine made a funny noise. What's going on, right? Because your machine will do something weird once and it won't do it again. And it really won't do it when you're on phone with tech support.
Right. That's Murphy's Law.
That's the one time that your machine's going to run flawlessly. You call up tech support, you're like, hey, I got a problem. And you show them your machine and you hit the start button. Well, I had a problem, and then you hang up and it does it again. But, you know, it's like one of the things that I strive really, really hard for, and believe it or not, I study a lot, is that when I give information, I want it to be factual information, and I want it to be correct information, because when somebody takes the wrong advice, it costs them money. When I first started, I took the wrong advice on what product to buy. And it was a software, and I bought it, and it cost me money. And then I had to learn from that mistake, and I had to get something else and learn from that mistake and then get something else. So when people ask questions on the internet, like, hey, this is my tension, and they show the top and the bottom, and somebody goes, oh, well, you're showing too much bobbin thread, loosen your bobbin, right? That's the opposite of what you want to do. And if you don't know, you're going to loosen your bobbin thread, and now the problem's worse. And it's costing you time and money and productivity. So, you know, it's really, really important that when you're looking for information and you ask a difficult question, that you're making sure that, you know, I've heard it from one person. Did I hear it from two, right? Or three? Because, or do I know the source that it came from, right? So is it a verified good source that gives out factual information all the time? Or is it somebody that's moving from the hobby world that's only had their machine a month? And, you know, they're still learning their machine too. You can always share, and this is something that I watch in the take up every week, is that you can share your point of wherever you're at in your journey. You can share, right? But at the same time, if you're not 100% sure, I wouldn't, you know, if you tell somebody, hey, do this, and it's wrong, you know, it costs them money. And as somebody that learned almost everything the hard way, I've spent a lot of money in the learning process that I would have much rather spent on other things.
Yeah, a lot of it's watching the reputations too, and just seeing who are the people that seem to give good advice. So I'd like to think that we're doing that for our customers here at TexMac and Happy Embroidery Machines, and I would think that equivalent people with other competing brands are doing the same thing. I will say that dealing with Jeff here with the Embroidery Nerd, and just in my 23 years experience, what Jeff is doing, and I'm glad that you guys have come to like his page, his blog. He's learned it the hard way, and he's giving out really, really good advice. And one of the reasons that I enthusiastically agreed to be on here is because any of our customers that are here that are watching this, as well as people, other serious embroiderers, they're going to get good advice from you, Jeff. And you're not paying me to say that, but I did listen to you over talking to you, helping you with your machine, and I thought to myself, and like as you should evaluate people that you talk to, yeah, he does seem to give pretty good advice. I saw him help somebody else that he got great results with. So, but I'll tell you, Jeff has got my vote of confidence. So he gives excellent advice. So there's unsolicited plug for you there.
Well, and it's, you know, I try really, really hard, because the last thing I want to do is cost somebody money. Especially when you're first starting out. I mean, you buy $15,000 to $20,000 machine, and you say, oh, well, what supplies do I need? And somebody gives, you know, I want to do dry fit polos, and somebody says, oh, you need cutaway, and you go buy cutaway, and you buy the wrong cutaway, right?
Right.
It's
well.
Right, but you know, it's those little things that you buy that, and then you sew it out on a shirt, and it doesn't turn out good, and you take a picture of it. And say, what's wrong? And somebody goes, oh, you bought the wrong cutaway. And, you know, here's a pitfall of every new embroiderer that I've seen. Save everything you screw up. If you screw up the logo on the left front quarter panel of a hat, guess what? You have a test piece on the right front quarter panel of a hat. If you mess up a left chest logo and it eats the shirt, you know how many swatches you can get out of a shirt to run tests? That you get a file from a digitizer, you throw it on your machine, you hit the start button, you test that thing with the colors on the same fabric, the same stabilizer that you're going to use. And if you have a problem, you can take a picture of it. You can send it back to your digitizer, and they'll make adjustments. But if you, and don't laugh too hard, because I did this when I started. I screwed up one shirt. I pulled out that shirt, I put in a new one, I screwed up the next shirt. And I pulled that out and I stuck in the new one, I screwed up the next shirt. And now I'm sitting there, man, I've screwed up 3 shirts. But I had 3 shirts worth of material I could have been testing on. And it wasn't until somebody on the internet, who might be in the comments, said, you can save these to test on. Did that light bulb go off in my head? that I was like, why haven't I been doing this? And now also all the way around a hat before I throw it away. If it comes out great, great. If it doesn't, I'm going to sew all the way around that thing, because it's a $5 hat that was going to go in the trash anyways. I may as well get all the mileage out of it I can. I don't know if you see that very much, Renee, but I've seen a lot of people that will screw up a shirt and chuck it.
Well, I picked the camera angle here in my home because if I turn my camera a little to this direction, we have a treadmill, and we both promise ourselves we'll walk and we'll jog regularly and everything like that, but it's hanging with reject shirts because I do exactly what you do. I sew on them, or they're lessons to learn. If somebody asks for that style shirt again, they're a great reference. So the pitfall of that, Pitfalls for New Embroiderers, is that you will accumulate shirts and rejects and that you're going to have to put up with because they are extremely valuable. So they're not pretty, but they are very valuable to you as an embroiderer.
So one of the things that you can also do with this is a side product that I didn't think of, but we've got Eric Campbell in the comments.
Oh,
and he actually said this, and this was something that I was like, I never thought of that. But when I make a patch, the very first patch that I make goes up on my patch wall. That's the small one. I've got more. But I've started, when I run a sample on a shirt, if that turns out well, I throw it in a book. And now when somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, can I see work you've done? I can point at my wall and they can see that. But now I have this book of logos on polo shirts that I've done that are similar to what they want. So, you can save your spoiled garments. I call them spoiled garments. I don't know who else does, but you can save those to make test swatches on. And then if those test swatches come out good, you can throw them in a book. And now you have a reference, because when you hand a customer a physical sample that they can hold in their hand, they can feel it, look at it with their eyes, it's a whole new ball game versus seeing a picture of it.
Right, absolutely. When I was helping Beth get ready for her foray, she bought one of our machines and she's doing her own thing. And I'm supposed to stay separate, and I do, but I step in there. The first thing I made for her was a sample book, because people don't know your customers. If you're an embroiderer, then one of the most difficult things as an embroiderer is to communicate the translation process from your customer's art to what it's going to look like in embroidery. But if you have any familiar, especially logos, if you get to do any familiar corporate logos, Wendy's or Nike or something like that, or even if just a good, nicely done logo, and then have a picture of the original art and then the logo in stitches, like Jeff said, they can touch it, they can feel it, they can see the value in it and how wonderful it looks, because embroidery sells itself when they can see that. But also when they can see that translated, it really, really helps close the sale.
Yep. I mean, ultimately, when you're starting out, they don't know you and you don't know them. And you can be like, well, I've done good stuff, but they're still just coming to you as an embroiderer. And when you can show them that good stuff, it goes back to showing your value. And now I'm going to come back. Holy cow. I should be better at monitoring the comments. We have Frank here say, I target small businesses for that reasons. Builders, plumbers, small one-man bands. Yep. Those are really, really good. Linda is asking, what is a good embroidery digitizing class to take? To be determined. I've been in a few. Digitizing Masterclass is a really good one by DJ Anderson. We had him on the show a while back. John Deere is also a really good source, but there's also Lee Caroselli over at Balboa Threadworks.
I agree with all these people. Yes,
they're all really, really good places to go if you're looking for it. You just have to find which one kind of fits your style and is going to bring value to you as a digitizer, because everybody learns differently. And so to match up with the teacher that's teaching the way that you learn is fantastic.
If I could add something really fast, is also take advantage of industry trade shows. I know that's kind of a dead subject right now in light of the current health crisis, but at some point they even do this online. Look for, like, I know, Jeff, you interacted with us initially through DAX, the Decorated Apparel Expo, and I believe that's DAX Show, DAX Show.com. I'm not plugging for them, but we'll exhibit there. But our competitors will exhibit there, but industry experts will teach classes there. And there's also other industry trade shows as well. There used to be called Imprinted Sportswear Show, ISSshows.com. Jennifer Cox with NNEP. These are entire networks of people that of industry experts that you can go through and find names. And what's really wonderful is names like Jeff has been mentioning, they're in there too. So you have cross verification that these people have industry-wide expertise, and you have all kinds of other sources as well. I could name names over and over and over, but I did want to interject those trade shows, the trade publications. You can look for names of associations that have classes that Jeff was alluding to give you that kind of knowledge.
So I will add, I'm going to plug the Impressions Connect that is coming up. If you guys are not aware of Impressions Connect, I highly suggest you go out to the internet and you Google it. There will be a lot of classes at Impressions Connect that, because essentially it's a virtual Impressions Expo from what I understand, because I signed up for it, because there's going to be classes and I can go to those classes and learn. So if you guys haven't looked at that, go look at that. Look at the classes, look at the people who are teaching the classes, and you can determine whether or not it's going to be a good value for you. I would put money on it that it will be, and it doesn't matter at what stage you're at, it will be. That's my 2 cents on that. And I'm going to try and burn through these comments, Renee, because we've hit the 8 o'clock, and we usually go for an hour, but I think if it's okay with you, we'll go into a little bit of both.
Sure.
All right. So we have Van here saying agreed. Itemizing the invoice shows value of what they are investing in. Yep. We have Linda. That formula was great. And I did see it's 2 comments down. I'll get there. So Jeff just hit on why I keep attending your classes, Renee. So
I haven't seen you in a little while, Joe, but I know that Joe's gotten good enough that she can also teach some classes too. There's a lot of experts here in your group. And just from genuine experience. So much praise to everybody. Keep going. I'll shut up.
We got Matt say, I had a whole box of bobbins where it was all pretty much super glued to itself. Not one was bent there. Carrie was asking if we could post the formula that Renee gave for the amount per hour. Matt says we can do that, and this is a live stream, but will be available to rewatch. Yep. Matt's typing in the comments. We'll smile on that. I don't know if you've got a reference sheet or not, Renee, but
I do. I'm willing to share it. I have an Excel spreadsheet that I've made for myself, and I'll disclaimer out, plug in your numbers, but it's fun because you can plug in your cost for digitizing, your cost per item, and you can put your expected return, and then it'll start plugging in your numbers, what you should charge for 1 to 5 pieces, 8 to 10 pieces, that kind of stuff. So I did it, but it's my private piece, but I'm willing to share it. Just make sure that you do your own experimentation. So yes, I'm very happy to share that. And Jeff, I'm sure you've got a system too. So not to say, so go ahead.
Oh, yep, I do. But mine's not in a spreadsheet yet. So we'll pull this one, like Cheryl says, like taking a car to the repair shop, and when they are checking the car runs perfect. Yep, that's how it goes. Yep. When you've got tech support on the phone, it's not going to work. We've got Mary Jane. Bobbins are not the only thing that can be bad out of the box. I had an entire 100 needle box where every needle was missing the eye.
Ooh.
I was frustrated as to why I couldn't thread the needles, put them under a magnifying glass, no eyes. So this is my never ceases to amaze me moment.
That's a new one for me. I hope you got your money back though.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine. We have a comment from Eric here, both for examples of what you had done and for testing absolutely of why you would keep your samples. Our shop used to have shirts cut into panels. On downtime, we had created pre-sorted color, fabric, and texture swatch material. That is a really, really good plan for anybody. It's best if you can test a design on the exact same fabric with the exact same stabilizer. It's going to do all the distortion just like it would on your regular garment. And Renee's got something I can tell.
No, I was just going to praise Eric Campbell because I've seen him at so many lectures, read many of his articles. So he's one of those lurking super experts out there. But plug you, Eric. Thank you for being here and putting your input.
So we have that is brilliant. Thank you. I'm sorry I fell behind. That was 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. I saved my sublimation t-shirts to test on the colors. Yep, that is excellent. Oh, I rolled the screen. So here we go. Heck, someone had 7 blank laptop bags they were disposing of, kept them for sew outs. Yep. I mean, if you can see people giving out stuff that they're like, you know what? I mean, I ask people for shirts that have holes in them or pants that they've worn through the knees because it's free swatch material. You know, there are places that you should look to save money and there are places that you shouldn't. Saving money by finding somebody that's getting rid of a garment that you can do tests on is one of those places that's definitely worth looking, in my opinion, especially when you're starting out. I don't know what you think about that, Renee.
No, I think that's great. I had a thought, and I'm not going to jump off camera, and just in the interest of keeping things fast and moving along. But some of these garments that Beth has bought, what I've done is I've taken the style number, copied and pasted the description off of Sanmars or Alpha Embroiderers, and printed it out. And then I actually printed out little swatches just on a printer of the color swatches of what they come in, and then I affix a tag. And so when she goes to present a garment and the customer asks, well, what do you have in golf shirts? Well, here's one style, and then she's got a crib sheet, or the customer can look at it. But that's one thing I would suggest if you happen to, among your bag of rejects that you want to use for swatches, if it's even more valuable, kind of a pain to do at the time, but you'll love it later when 6 months down the line you grab it and you got some info, or even just put it on a Sharpie that this was Sanmar Sport Tech, you know, then you know what it is, and then it's even more valuable because if the customer orders it, then you see that reference material.
Yep, and like this is one of those aha moments that I'm literally having because that's really, really good. I am a big dry fit material type guy, and some of the dry fit shirts are really, really thin. And that is something that when I go visit a customer, they're like, well, I want a dry fit, but I don't want it to be super thin. And that's if I would document which ones I'm sewing on, I could say, here's the fabric of this one. And here's I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah. I don't do it enough. So I'm going to start redoing that. Yes.
Yep. So Eric says, folks who test on stacks of stabilizers, now you know what you should be doing instead. You know, this is, and Eric says this in some of his classes if you haven't taken them, this is the interaction of stabilizer, thread, and fabric. So if you want to run a test, you need to make sure that you're running that test with stabilizer, thread, and fabric. If you omit the fabric part, you're changing a variable that can ultimately have an effect on the finished quality of embroidery.
Right. And if I could interject on that one note is that the only time that I test, if I'm helping troubleshoot people with their happy embroidery machines, like it's not sewing out well, the reason I would sew on 2 layers of Pellin or backing is I'm eliminating that X factor so I can see what can I, that's my common medium. It should sew well on that. And that's the only time you really need to be testing on that. If you want to take the fabric out of the equation for whatever reason for troubleshooting, that's it.
Yep. I mean, you know, I can throw down a patch twill. Honestly, I can throw down a patch twill and I can stitch a logo on it and I can show it to a customer. But that patch twill is going to move completely different than a dry fit polo. And so it may look fantastic on a nice tight woven twill, but it's not going to look good at all on that on that dry fit material. So when you're testing, just make sure the closer you can get to the finished fabric that you can throw in that sandwich, the better off your embroidery is going to look. And that's going to help improve your quality, which is going to help you sell to everyone else.
Absolutely. You also get a sixth sense of what embroidery is going to do differently. This is almost saying almost the same thing. Like if you take a design and throw it on a hoodie, it's going to look a little bit different than what it's going to do here. And if you develop that sixth sense, then you're going to immediately realize how to compensate through different techniques, which is another topic altogether. But just building on your point that you just made, absolutely.
Okay. Carrie says, so I'm so glad I'm not the only one who saves my oops shirts and hats. Yep, that's something that everybody should be doing. Eric, font sizes, materials, techniques, and sample work. It's a great idea. I mean, it all is. And it does depend on your market. But, you know, if you're sewing on dog collars, I would test on webbing, because webbing's going to run differently than your 2 stacks of stabilizer, guaranteed. Would be cool to see the sample book sometime and how you put that together. So I think that there's actually an article out there by Eric on his sample book, but I'd be interested in seeing one on yours as well, Renee. That would be a very good content for you to put out for XMAC.
It is. It's 40 feet from me in Beth's car, so I wish I could do it, but I don't want to be running out off topic. I want to keep help you keep your pace going. But yes, remind me. It looks like we've got a to-do list to help out some of your visitors here. So please, I'd be glad to help you provide and help follow up as we see we need to for our visitors here.
Right on. So we have Kathleen here. Lee is amazing. Lee over at Balboa Threadworks.
Yes.
She is an excellent educator, and her classes are fantastic. We have Matt that dropped in the Impressions Connect link. And I think that's something we're going to see a lot more is online educational content because of the current climate. It's difficult to go meet in places. And so that content is now shifting and pivoting like all businesses should during something like this that changes the way that you do business. They're pivoting in a way that they can react as well as help continue doing the education that they are. I went off again.
It's all good.
We have Eric here. I'm certainly recording some stuff for both DAX and Impressions Expo. So he is teaching, I want to say it's 3 classes when I looked at the Impressions Expo. So in case if you guys are wondering, I'd attend for those. Honestly, I've taken classes from him. They're great. They did not come from TexMac. I'm not sure what that question was, but we will remember if you comment again. I promise. We have J.A. Digitizing Studios. This is Justin Armenta, who's usually with me live. He says, saving rejects are good training tools for new employees as well. Absolutely. Visuals of what not to do. Yeah, those are, I mean, you can show them. This is what happened when I didn't hoop it tight enough and my hoop popped open halfway through the embroidery. Or this is what happened when I hoop too tight. Look at all this puckering. Right? These are all things that you're going to learn. And unfortunately, they're not things that I mean, there's training that can take care of some of it, but ultimately trial and error always seems to be the best teacher. And one of the things that I didn't do when I first started, but I do now, is when you have to order your first order extra, like 2, maybe 3 extra of the blank garments. Because chances are you're going to have an oops. And now you're going to have scraps. But if you order a couple extra, you're no longer worried about, oh man, now I have to order more. And there's a $200 minimum to get the free shipping. Now you're, oh, well, that stank. And you throw it off to the side and you get the next one and you correct the problem and you go. Because a lot of these places that you order from, they have minimums to hit free shipping. And if you're buying a $10 garment and your markup is $10 and your embroidery is another $5 on top of that, now you throw that out and you're paying $10 for a garment and $18 for shipping and your embroidery on top of that, you're going to end up losing money. So sometimes it's cheaper to buy an extra 1 or 2 blanks in the beginning and anticipate problems, because if you're new, you should be anticipating to having a problem. If people are telling you that you won't have any problems when you first start, I'm going to tell you not to listen to them, because you will. Something will happen and you're going to have to throw that garment out. And you want to make sure that when it does, you've got an extra one on hand, or you can communicate with your customer. Hey, look, just so you know, I'm still kind of learning my machine. There is a possibility that the garment might get screwed up. If it does, I can get it on my next order and have that taken care of for you, right? Because now you're putting in that you have a timeline, but also you're letting them know if something goes wrong, that might extend a little bit. You're going into that communication thing where they're going to be understanding. Nobody, I have not met anybody that's like, oh, no, that's not acceptable. If you say, look, these are the real things that can happen, they're like, oh, yeah, that's okay. Thank you for letting me know that ahead of time, rather than, oh, crap, this happened, and you call them up. I'm not going to be able to meet the deadline that you needed these by, or I can't do this order anymore because, you know, what happens if you order 10 Richardson 112 hats in the most popular color and they sit on your shelf for, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks before you get to that order, right? And you mess one up, and now it's baseball season, and there are no Richardson 112 hats to be found anywhere.
Or right now, where they're in short supply right now, right?
They are, and I actually went to buy a Richardson 112 hat, and I was like, oh, man. I showed them that color, and now there aren't any. And, I mean, there's nothing I can do about that, right? But had I thought ahead of time, ordered an extra couple, I'd have been okay. Because it turned out that they wanted 2 more. And I had to come back and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I can't buy the hat.
They'll understand because you communicated that to them.
Yep. But had I anticipated having a problem, I'd had 2 hats. So I'm going to, go ahead.
I wanted to say real quick, just to add on, now that's where you're providing the items, which is the most ideal thing because you can make money from the markup. But a legitimate segment of this business is also, and I try to push Beth away from this, but it's legitimate. It's personalization where the customer provides the item. In that case, make sure that in any paperwork, like Jeff is talking about, communicating through your invoice, your value, but also invoices or customer sign-off sheets on your work, agreement to work. Put a disclaimer on there holding you harmless from any inadvertent damage that your machine may make to the customer provided item, and also make some allowance, like a hooping fee, $5 to $10, because you're going to put that item on more slowly because you can't buy an extra of your great-grandfather's World War II bomber jacket that they want you to sew their name or their pilot's wings on or something like that in a crazy scenario like that. But in deference to that side of the business where you're personalizing customer-provided items, protect yourself with disclaimers. There's plenty of language out there that you can borrow, steal from. I've got some that I've cut and paste, but you can look for it yourself. Protect yourself for that so you don't get into a similar situation with customer provided items.
Yep. So that actually brings up the next question that we had is, do you have a policy or contract for customer supplied items? So I do personally. If it has sentimental value, I will not touch it, period. That is my personal opinion, because sentimental value items you can't replace at all. So that is my personal opinion on that. And I think that we might have lost Renee. He kind of froze up a little bit. We'll see if he starts moving again, or we can hear him at least. I can't hear him. Renee? Okay. Maybe he lost internet. We'll move on a couple more questions here. Justin, you can always use those extras that accumulate as an upsell later on. Someone orders a shirt and unsure of hats, throw in an extra hat with their logo. You know, you can always do that, and it always helps. It always helps with that. So I'm going to double click on a couple of things here, and it looks like we had Renee drop off, which is okay. Probably some technical difficulties, which is all right because we were just about to end anyways. So I'm not sure if Matt is still there, but Matt, we have the I think we were going to announce the winner of our last giveaway. If not, we'll put it in a post. I'll see if Matt says something here to me real quick. Coming up tomorrow for the next 12 days is actually sponsored by TexMax Direct. We're going to have a $100 gift card to TexMax Direct's website. That's going to be tomorrow's giveaway. You can enter to get in on that. Winner will be announced Monday, I believe, on that one. So we also have that as well to look forward to. Unfortunately, I don't see Renee popping back up. He still has the link. But I would like to thank Renee for his time coming in here and helping us with these questions. Hopefully everybody got a lot of value out of this. And it's really great when I have people that want to come on with me and help kind of debate these topics. And it wasn't that much of a debate, but discuss these topics. There we go. With everybody. Because we want to make sure that you guys are getting good information and that you can use that information to help improve your business. So with that, I believe we've covered everything that we need to. Hold on, I see Matt's typing me stuff. I'll take a look. We already announced the winner. Check the brand tab, so I can do that. We'll go ahead and click that up. So there we go. We have the TexMac Direct $100 gift card certificate. Look, Matt, I have hands. But that will be day number 9 of the 12 days of giveaway. Let me go ahead and take that down here. And I'm going to check here as well. And that looks good. And we'll check the comments as well. So you can enter by going to the Embroidery Nerd Facebook page. You'll be able to find a link that takes you to our website where you can go ahead and you fill out the entries to get in for that to win. So if you haven't yet, please join the Embroidery Nerd group. There are 3 questions to get in. Make sure you answer all 3 or else you won't get in. We do screen on those questions, so make sure that you do those. And I'm just kind of moving through some of the comments here. So I do see Linda saying you have Apple Machine. I do. I have the HCD3 model sitting behind me. And it's currently paused, waiting for me to turn around and smack the start button after this Facebook Live. So I am going to go ahead and burn through some of these more comments here. We have Carrie saying very good information tonight. Thank you. Excellent 12 days gift. It is, and we're really excited for it. And we've got some cool stuff coming up as well. Luann, awesome information. Linda, you have I do. It's right there. I'm not going to say your name because I'll get it wrong, and I don't want to get it wrong. But thank you as well. Thank you both for sharing all the knowledge you both have. Thank you very much. Great info tonight. How do I enter is on there. And thank you. First time catching live, great info. Thank you very much. We have Eileen. Thank you for some good information. And thanks a lot, Jeff and Renee. I do cringe at some of the advice given online sometime. I do. But again, everybody, I'd like to thank you for your time tonight and joining us. I'd like to thank Renee again with TexMac Direct, TexMax Happy Embroidery Machines, for his time coming on the show. If you are watching and you are an industry expert and would like to come on the show, please shoot me a message. I'd be more than happy to have you on. With that, everybody, you all have a great day, a great week. Finish out strong, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.